It's February 4th in the year 1999. We're some 1,500 miles from New York City, backstage at the Dakota Bar and Grill. And the Jazz Image on location, and it's good to make your acquaintance, Andy Bey. Welcome to these microphones.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
I've been stimulated, I've been mystified, I've been, how can I describe it, intrigued with your music and your approach to messages and music, and I wonder how you work with critical standards and what generates your specifications when it comes to performance and music.
I think the main thing is to be focused and really, focus on what it is you want to do. Always deal with the concept, to try to draw the listener in, to communicate rather than, entertainment. Which is, I feel, is a form of entertainment.
The idea of concept and focus, could you expand on that a little more?
Well, to really to focus on the music, to really concentrate on the music and who you're working with, to try to get some kind of interplay, some kind of communication, to the listener as well as with the musicians you're playing with, and most of all, to be focused with yourself, so you can kind of convey that thing to the audience, It's like a certain kind of subtlety, you might say, but then there's all kinds of, things you do in terms of dynamics. You switch dynamics from time to time, to keep yourself interested, to always be willing to take risk, even if the risk might not make it all the time, but you keep, you strive to take risks with the music, even if you do something the same way, the same thing, you might do it differently from night to night.
That's an artist at work.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Beyond your criteria and standards, I think about, you've been faced all your life in music with the forces of marketing and the commercial main path. What's held you to the line and developed this dedication? Certainly you're not creating music for fads and trends.
You're right. Well, I think the main thing is the love of the music, and the inspiration you get from other performers, and and when you look at the performers of the past, they dealt with all kind of adversity and things, and they might have identified heavily with a lot of the, physical crisis or whatever, but at the same time, they never gave up, the love of the music. They always stayed focused. They never compromised.
Who mentored or stimulated you?
Oh, many. I could go on. The list is numerous, if you think about, oh, wow. Art Tatum. I know I can't play like him, but it's somebody like that, Sarah Vaughan, or Nat King Cole, Duke Ellington. Anybody that's Count Basie, Errol Garner. Anybody that's had to pay some kind of dues, Miles Davis, Frank Sinatra, for that matter, that have stuck to what they believed in,
In developing that style, the vocal style, the tonality, and the range that you have, certainly you're somewhere between instrumental and the human voice and beyond. I don't know how far beyond that could be,
well,
but
because I play an instrument also, and so therefore, it's like, the singing influences the piano, and the piano influences the singing, and everything else that goes along with it in terms of the writing, and in terms of the concept, in terms of just being focused on what you come up with an idea and you keep developing it through the years. It certainly didn't sound like that in the very beginning. You keep, hopefully you keep growing you know.
May I mention a couple of titles, and you just give me a quick reaction. You recorded Riverman,
Right.
and you have a concept for it. What is it?
Well, actually, it came from Nick Drake's record, you know, which is basically, you know, this writer from England, you know. And the tune was brought to my attention by my manager, producer, Herb Jordan, because I'd never heard of Riverman or Nick Drake. But I could definitely relate to the concept, because I've heard concepts like that. That's why I zeroed in on it, you know. So it made perfect sense to me, because it's not the tune, it's what you do with it, it's what you relate to the tune, you know, in terms of, you know, your thing, you know.
And then there's that heartbreaking, soul-searching, and searing song, Blood Count by Billy Strayhorn.
Well, yeah. Well, I could definitely relate to Billy Strayhorn, because I've been listening to Duke all my life. And of course, if you listen to Duke, you listen to Billy Strayhorn. I mean, they were one of the same, but they were different. You know, Billy was just, music was a little more softer, a little more romantic, but very daring, you know. So a lot of his music was instrumental, you know, but lyrics were written later on. For instance, Blood Count, which was basically instrumental too. But this singer in Boston that I met, you know, well, I didn't meet her. I was called to my attention by Fred Hirsch, who I did a record with. He said Dominic E., the singer, wrote lyrics to Blood Count. And I was interested because I was getting ready to record an album with him. And he mentioned that some of Billy Strayhorn's stuff had lyrics to it. And he mentioned Blood Count. So I thought it would be a challenge for me to deal with that.
I've been thinking as I listen to you sing and hear you on record as well, either out in the audience, one-on-one, do you explore a lot of literature, poetry, essay, novel?
Not so much in the past, but, you know, lately I've been, you know, looking at poetry. And I like philosophy very much. You know, because I think you can apply philosophy to everyday living. You know, I like something that I can use, you know, not that I'm constantly trying to be anything, you know, but just be an artist. But a lot of things influence me. I mean, right now I've been touched by a lot of Rainer Maria Rilke's poetry and his writing, his diary. It's a book of his diaries that he wrote throughout in his early life. And I was very impressed by his deep spirituality in a way. And a lot of things he's saying I can relate to, about not looking outside but always looking within for the answer within yourself for anything, you know.
Andy Bey, what do you want me or someone else in that audience to take with them after your performance?
Just that I communicated something to them, you know, more than, you know, the music or the technique of the music or the concept, which plays a part. But, you know, because I realize the audience, they listen differently than maybe the musician, which is good that, you know, that musicians are musically aware. But the main thing is that you communicate something to the audience, that you give them a feeling, of wanting to do something. Whatever it is, something, I don't want to say positive, but just to focus on something that they get joy out of.
Andy Bey, what a pleasure to sit in before the signal for the show to begin. We're here at the Dakota Bar and Grill. The date is February 4th in the year 1999. Just a few yesterdays ago, you started your career. Oh,
Many yesterdays ago. Like 3 or 4 years old, you know, but I didn't know what I was doing then, but I must have been groping for something. I must have been led to it, you know, so I'm still here. So it must be something keeping me doing what I'm doing.
Thank you for being there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Pleasure's all mine.